My son put his hands on me in my own kitchen at 3 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. I didn't call the police. I didn't scream for help. Instead, I spent the rest of that dark night baking him breakfast, buttermilk biscuits, peach preserves, cheese grits, the works. And when Ethan walked into my dining room 7 hours later, thinking he'd finally broken me into submission, the look on his face when he saw who was sitting at my table made every bruise on my body worth it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start with the moment that changed everything. Picture this, it's 7:45 on a Wednesday morning in Savannah, Georgia. I'm sitting at the head of my mahogany dining table, the same table where my late husband Thomas proposed to me 43 years ago. I'm wearing my navy cotton dress, the one Thomas always said brought out my eyes. My hair is pulled back in a neat bun, not a strand out of place. The morning sun streams through my lace curtains, catching the dust motes floating in the air like tiny prayers. The table is set for 4. White linen tablecloth. My grandmother's china with the hand-painted blue flowers. Silver cutlery polished until it gleams. A crystal vase with a single white camellia from my garden sits in the center. The coffee is hot. The biscuits are golden. Everything is perfect, except for my face. My bottom lip is split and swollen to twice its normal size. There's a bruise blooming under my left eye, purple and angry like a storm cloud. My right cheekbone is tender to the touch, and I'm not hiding any of it. No makeup, no concealer, no excuses. I hear footsteps on the stairs. Heavy shuffling. Hungover footsteps. Ethan. My hands rest calmly in my lap. My back is straight. I learned a long time ago that posture is power, and today I need every ounce of power I can muster. The ache in my lower back where he shoved me into the china cabinet reminds me why I'm doing this, why I spent the night cooking instead of crying. He appears in the doorway rumpled and bleary-eyed, still wearing yesterday's wrinkled khakis and a polo shirt with a stain on the collar. His dark hair sticks up on one side. At 39 years old, my son should be in his prime. Instead, he looks 10 years older, his face puffy from too much bourbon and not enough sleep. His eyes find the table first. I watch him take it in, the fancy spread, the smell of butter and coffee, and home. Confusion crosses his face. Then his gaze slides to me sitting there like a queen presiding over her court. For one brief second, he sees my face, really sees it. The split lip, the bruise, evidence of what he did. I hold my breath waiting for shock, for remorse, for the son I raised to appear through the monster he's become. But what I see instead makes my stomach turn. A flicker of satisfaction crosses his features. So quick I almost miss it. Pride. Like he's finally proven something. Put me in my place. Then comes the confusion again, morphing into arrogance as he misreads the situation entirely. Well. His voice is rough from sleep and alcohol. He straightens up, pulling his shoulders back. What's all this? He walks to the table, pulls out the chair across from me, the one I've designated as his judgment seat, and drops into it with the casual entitlement of someone who thinks he's won. I gotta say, Mom. He reaches for a biscuit, the most perfect golden one on the platter. Nobody makes biscuits like you. He takes a huge bite, chewing with his mouth open. Crumbs fall onto my pristine tablecloth. See, this is how it should be. A little discipline and everything falls right back into... The doorbell rings. Sharp. Clear. Exactly 8:00 a.m. Ethan freezes biscuit halfway to his mouth for another bite. Who the hell is that? His eyes narrow. Did you invite someone? His voice rises, that edge of anger creeping in so fast it makes my pulse quicken. I don't want to see anyone. Send them away. I stand slowly, carefully. My joints protest 64 years of life plus last night's violence make every movement deliberate. I smooth down the front of my dress with hands that don't shake. Not anymore. That would be the company I invited, I say. My voice is steady calm. It doesn't even sound like mine. What? He slams his coffee cup down. The sound echoes like a gunshot. Mom, didn't you hear me? I said send them. I'm already walking toward the front door. His voice follows me, rising in volume and fury, but I don't look back. My Sunday shoes, simple black flats, nothing fancy, make soft clicks on the hardwood floor. Each step feels like walking toward my future and away from my past. I reach the door, place my hand on the brass knob cool against my palm, take one deep breath. Then I open it. Standing on my porch in the soft morning light are 3 people. Judge Victoria Thompson, 72 years old. My neighbor for 40 years. She's wearing an impeccable peach linen pantsuit and a string of pearls. Her silver hair is styled in a perfect bob. Her dark eyes meet mine with a look that says, I'm here. We're doing this. Detective James Carter, 56, in his crisp Savannah Police Department uniform. His badge catches the light. He holds his hat in his hands, his expression grave but kind. Thomas's friend, his academy classmate, the man who spoke at my husband's funeral, and Officer Lisa Rodriguez, younger, maybe 30, also in uniform. A body camera is clipped to her chest. A camera hangs from her hand. Good morning, Michelle, Judge Victoria says. Her voice is warm but carries the weight of authority that commanded courtrooms for 30 years. Good morning, Victoria. Detective Carter, Officer Rodriguez. I step back, holding the door wide. Please come in. The coffee is fresh. Behind me, I hear Ethan's chair scrape back. Hear his sharp intake of breath. This is the moment his world ends and mine begins again. But to understand how we got here, to understand why a mother would do this to her own son, I need to take you back. Back to before the violence, before the anger, before my son became a stranger in my own home. Back to when I still believed love could fix everything. I am Michelle Ann Parker née Richardson, 64 years old, born and raised right here in Savannah, daughter of James Richardson, a dock worker, and Mary Richardson, who cleaned houses to put me through nursing school. I am the product of generations of women who knew how to work hard, how to sacrifice, and how to hold their heads high, no matter what. I became a registered nurse in 1982, met Thomas Parker, Officer Thomas Parker, in 1983 when he came into the ER with a dislocated shoulder from chasing down a robbery suspect. He was 28, I was 23. He asked me out before the doctor had even finished setting his shoulder. I said yes. We married in 1984, had Ethan in 1986. Thomas died in 2008, killed in the line of duty. Ethan was 21, finishing his last year at Georgia Tech. Engineering degree, Dean's List. I was so proud I thought my heart would burst right out of my chest. For 16 years after Thomas died, I was fine. Lonely, yes. The house felt too big, too quiet. But I was fine. I worked the night shift at Savannah Memorial, came home to my garden, video called with Ethan once a week. He had a good job in Atlanta working for a tech company. His own apartment, his own life. I was proud of that. Proud that I'd raised a man who could stand on his own 2 feet. Then 2020 happened. COVID shut down the world. Ethan's company, like as so many others, didn't survive. He lost his job in May. Lost his apartment by August, couldn't pay rent without income, and unemployment wasn't enough in expensive Atlanta. He called me on a Thursday evening, his voice tight with shame and anger. Mom, I need to ask you something. Pause. Can I come stay with you just temporarily, just until I get back on my feet? What was I supposed to say? He was my son, my only child, the last piece of Thomas I had left in this world. Of course, baby. Come home. He moved in on September 15th, 2020. 2 suitcases, a laptop, and a cardboard box of personal items. That was it. Everything else was gone, sold, donated, left behind in an Atlanta apartment he could no longer afford. It's just temporary, Mom, he said, standing in his old bedroom, looking around at the space that hadn't changed much since high school. Same blue walls, same desk. 6 months tops. I'll find something, I promise. Take your time, honey. There's no rush. That was my first mistake. Love without boundaries. The first year wasn't so bad. He job hunted, sent out resumes, had a few virtual interviews that went nowhere. The market was terrible. Everyone was hiring, but no one was hiring. He grew frustrated, but he was trying. I could see that. I worked my shifts. Came home tired. Found comfort in knowing my son was safe under my roof. Made his favorite meals. Did his laundry. Let him use my car when he needed it. You don't have to do that, Mom, he'd say, but he never stopped me. The second year things shifted. He stopped job hunting as actively, started sleeping until noon, spent hours in front of his laptop, but I don't think he was looking at job postings anymore. Gaming, maybe. Social media? I don't know. I was afraid to ask, and he started drinking. Not much at first. A beer with dinner, 2 beers, then bourbon. A glass after I left for my shift. I'd come home at 7 in the morning and find empty bottles in the recycling bin. Never said anything. Didn't want to shame him. Didn't want him to feel worse than he already did. Everyone processes stress differently, I told myself. He'll work through it. That was my second mistake. Silence in the face of warning signs. The third year this past year, 2023, was when everything fell apart. The drinking wasn't occasional anymore. It was nightly, daily. I'd find bottles hidden around the house behind the couch cushions in the garage, even in the bathroom cabinet. When I mentioned it gently, he'd explode. "What do you want me to do, Mom, huh? You want me to just snap my fingers and get my life back? That's not how it works." "I know, honey, I'm just worried." "Well, don't be. I'm handling it." He wasn't handling it. The money started disappearing. Small amounts at first. $20 from my purse. $50. I told myself I was misremembering. Then my credit card bill came in September with charges I didn't recognize. Bars, liquor stores, $487 in 1 month. When I confronted him, he got defensive. "That's my money too. Dad's pensioned this house. It's my inheritance. Or are you planning to cut me out?" "Ethan, I'm not living off charity. Mom, this is my home too. My family's money. I have a right to it." I started hiding my purse, changed my PIN. He noticed. "You don't trust me now, your own son." The guilt was suffocating. Maybe I was being unfair. Maybe he did have a point. He was Thomas's son. This was his family home, his inheritance someday. That was my third mistake, letting guilt override my instincts. The verbal abuse escalated. Everything was my fault. I didn't understand how hard the job market was. I was too critical, too controlling, too much of a worrier. If I asked him to help with household chores, I was treating him like a child. If I asked about his plans, I was pressuring him. I started walking on eggshells in my own home, monitoring his moods, adjusting my behavior to avoid setting him off. I became smaller, quieter, less myself. My friends noticed. "Michelle, honey, you seem tired," my friend Diana said at church one Sunday. "Is everything all right?" "Just busy with work." I lied, smiled, changed the subject. I stopped inviting people over. What if Ethan was in one of his moods? What if there were bottles visible? What if he embarrassed me, embarrassed himself? The isolation crept in slowly, like fog, until one day I realized I was alone in my own life. Then came October 15th, 2023, the first time he put his hands on me. It was a Tuesday, my day off. I'd spent it cleaning the house, doing laundry, preparing a pot roast for dinner, Ethan's favorite. Trying to do something nice, trying to reach the son I remembered through the stranger he'd become. He came home at 11:47 p.m. I know because I checked my phone when I heard the door slam. I was in the living room reading, trying to wait up for him like mothers do. Like I'd done 1,000 times when he was a teenager. He stumbled in reeking of bourbon and cigarettes. His eyes were glazed, unfocused. "Mom," he swayed in the doorway. "Still up?" "Just wanted to make sure you got home safe." I kept my voice gentle, non-confrontational. "There's pot roast in the fridge if you're hungry." "I don't want your damn pot roast." His words slurred. "I want my life back. But I can't have that, can I? Because I'm stuck here. In this house. With you." The venom in that last word hit me like a slap. "Ethan, honey, let's talk about this tomorrow when what? When I'm sober enough to lie about how I really feel." He laughed bitter and ugly. "You want to know the truth, Mom? You want to know why I can't find a job? Because I come to interviews smelling like failure and disappointment. Because I live with my mommy at 39 years old. That's not shut up." He swept his arm across the hall table. My grandmother's ceramic vase, pale blue with delicate roses, crashed to the floor, shattered into dozens of pieces. I stared at the broken shards. That vase survived the Depression, survived my grandmother's journey from South Carolina to Georgia, survived 60 years in this house. Gone in a second. "Ethan," my voice shook, not with fear, with grief. "That was your great-grandmother's." "So what? It's just more old junk. This whole house is a museum. Everything in here is dead. Dad's chair, Dad's books, Dad's tools in the garage. You act like keeping all this stuff keeps him alive. But guess what? He's dead, Mom. And so is your life. And you're dragging me down with you." I should have called someone then. Diana, Victoria, the police, anyone. Instead I said, "You're drunk. Go to bed. We'll talk in the morning." Wrong answer. He came at me fast, faster than I thought possible for someone so intoxicated. Grabbed my upper arms, his fingers digging in hard enough to leave marks. Don't tell me what to do. He shook me, hard. My head snapped back and forth. My reading glasses flew off, clattered to the floor. The world became a blur of lights and shadows. Ethan, stop, you're hurting me. He didn't stop. If anything, he shook harder. You don't get to tell me anything anymore. This is my house too, my inheritance, and I'm sick of you acting like... He shoved me. Not a push. A shove. With force. With intent. I flew backward. My hip hit the corner of the hall table. Then my back slammed into the china cabinet, the antique oak cabinet that had been my mother's, then mine. The impact drove the air from my lungs in a painful gasp. My head whipped sideways, cracking against the cabinet's corner. White light exploded behind my eyes. Pain, sharp, shocking pain radiated from the back of my skull down my spine. I slid down the cabinet and crumpled to the floor, landing hard on my hip. The world tilted. Spun. A high-pitched ringing filled my ears. I could taste copper blood in my mouth. Through the haze of pain and shock, I saw Ethan standing over me, chest heaving, fists clenched. For a terrifying moment, I thought he might keep going. That this was how it would end, Michelle Parker, beloved nurse, devoted mother, dead on her own hallway floor at the hands of her own son. But something flickered in his eyes. Not regret, more like satisfaction. The satisfaction of finally releasing 3 years of pent-up rage. Then he spoke, his voice cold and sober despite the alcohol. Clean this up. He stepped over me, careful not to touch me again, and walked upstairs. A moment later, his bedroom door slammed shut. I lay there on the cold hardwood floor, surrounded by broken ceramic, and tried to understand what had just happened. My son, my baby, the boy I'd rocked to sleep, the man I'd sacrificed everything for, had just assaulted me in my own home. And then he'd walked away. The physical pain was almost manageable. I'm a nurse. I know pain. This would heal. But the emotional devastation, the betrayal that cut deeper than any bruise ever could. I don't know how long I stayed there. 5 minutes. 10. Time lost meaning in that hallway full of broken things. Finally, slowly, I pulled myself up, using the hall table for support. Every muscle screamed. My head throbbed with a sickening pulse. I stood there swaying, trying to catch my breath. The half-bathroom was just a few steps away. I made it there, gripping the doorframe for support, and flipped on the light. The mirror showed me a stranger. My gray hair had come loose from its bun, hanging in wild strands around my face. My left cheek was already swelling an angry red that would purple by morning. My bottom lip was split and bleeding, a thin trickle of blood running down my chin. Behind my eyes, the eyes Thomas had loved, the eyes that had seen so much life, was pure shock. I looked old, broken, used up, a victim. I turned on the cold water, cupped my shaking hands, and splashed it over my face. Once, twice. The icy shock cut through the fog in my head. I grabbed a washcloth and pressed it to my lip, watching the white fabric bloom red. In that bathroom at 12:17 a.m. on October 15th, 2023, something inside me shifted. I thought about my mother, about how she'd worked until her hands were raw to give me opportunities she never had. I thought about my grandmother who'd left an abusive husband in 1941 when women didn't do that, who'd raised 3 children alone, who'd survived. I thought about Thomas, about how he'd treated me like I was precious, how he'd never, not once in 24 years, raised his voice in anger, let alone his hand. And I thought about the woman I used to be, the young nurse who stood up to doctors twice her age when they were wrong about a patient, the mother who'd worked 2 jobs without complaint, the widow who'd buried her husband and kept going. Where had she gone? When had I shrunk so small? Looking in that mirror, seeing that broken, beaten woman, I made a decision. Never again. This was not who I was. This was not who I would be. Not for anyone. Not even for my son. I cleaned the blood from my face, assessed my injuries with clinical detachment. Split lip not deep enough for stitches. Cheekbone tender, but probably not fractured. Back bruised, but no sharp pain suggesting internal damage. Head injury, possible mild concussion, but pupils equal and reactive. I would survive this. And more than that, I would do something about it. I walked back to the hallway. The broken vase pieces lay scattered like memories, sharp-edged, irreparable. I left them there. Evidence. Upstairs, I could hear Ethan snoring. The peaceful sleep of someone unburdened by conscience. I should have been terrified. Should have packed a bag and left right then. Instead, I went to the kitchen and did the only thing that made sense in that moment. I started cooking. At 3:45 a.m. on October 15th, 2023, while my son slept off his rage and his bourbon, I stood in my kitchen and made buttermilk biscuits. My hands moved on autopilot, measuring flour, cutting in cold butter, adding buttermilk until the dough came together just right. Not too sticky, not too dry. The same way my grandmother taught me when I was 7 years old, standing on a step stool in her kitchen. The physical act of baking was grounding. Measuring, mixing, kneading. Steps I could control when everything else felt out of control. And it gave me time to think. Because somewhere between the split lip and the biscuit dough, a plan began forming. I could pack a bag, leave, go to Diana's house. She'd take me in no questions asked. But this was my house. Mine and Thomas's. We'd bought it together in 1987, right after Ethan was born. Thomas had carried me over the threshold, both of us laughing like fools. We'd painted every room together, planted the oak tree in the front yard, built the garden beds out back. Every memory of my marriage lived in these walls. Why should I be the one to leave? I could call the police right now. Have Ethan arrested, removed from my home. But I'd seen enough domestic violence cases in the ER to know how that would go. He'd be released within hours. Come back angrier. And then what? Would I get a restraining order against my own son? The shame of it. The gossip. Did you hear about Michelle Parker? Had her own boy arrested? No, that wasn't the answer either. I rolled out the biscuit dough, cut perfect circles with my grandmother's biscuit cutter, placed them on the baking sheet with precision. While they baked, I took out my phone. First, I documented everything. Photos of my face from multiple angles, the split lip, the bruising. I typed out a detailed account of what happened, time-stamped, and emailed it to myself. Then I took photos of the broken vase pieces, the scene in the hallway. Evidence, just in case. Then I made the calls. 4:17 a.m., Judge Victoria Thompson. It rang 3 times before her groggy voice answered. Hello, Michelle, is everything all right? Victoria. My voice cracked. Just saying her name out loud made it real. I need your help. Ethan, he hurt me. Tonight. And I need to do something about it. But I need to do it right. Silence. Then sharp and fully awake. Are you safe right now? Is he still there? He's asleep, passed out upstairs. But Victoria, I'm not running. This is my house. I won't be driven out of my own home by, I couldn't finish, by my own son. The words stuck in my throat. I'll be there at 8 o'clock sharp, she said. No hesitation. And Michelle, you're doing the right thing. The hardest thing, but the right thing. 4:31 a.m. Detective James Carter. His phone went to voicemail twice before he answered. Carter. His voice was thick with sleep but alert cop reflexes. James, it's Michelle Parker, Thomas's widow. I'm so sorry to call at this hour, but... Michelle? He sounded more awake now, concerned. What's wrong? It's Ethan, my son. There was an incident tonight. He assaulted me, in my home. And I need to file a report, but I took a breath. I want to do this with dignity, not with sirens and spectacle. Can we arrange something? Jesus, Michelle. I heard rustling, the sound of him getting out of bed. Are you in immediate danger? Do you need a car there right now? No, he's asleep. I'm safe until morning. But I need this to be handled properly. Victoria Thompson is coming at 8. Could you come too? With another officer, I want witnesses. I want this documented, but I want to look my son in the eye and show him what he's done. A long pause. That's highly irregular. I know. But James, you knew Thomas. You know me. I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm asking for the chance to do this on my terms. In my home. My way. Another pause. Then, 8 o'clock. I'll bring Officer Rodriguez. She's excellent with domestic cases, has training in documentation. Michelle, Thomas would be proud of you right now. That almost broke me. Almost. I swallowed hard. Thank you, James. 4:52 a.m. Sarah Henderson, my sister in Atlanta. She picked up on the first ring, instantly panicked. Michelle, what's wrong? Is it your heart? Are you... I'm okay. Well, no, I'm not okay. But I'm handling it. Deep breath. Ethan attacked me tonight. I'm calling the police in the morning. I'm having him arrested. And I wanted you to know before it all becomes real." "That bastard!" Sarah's voice went hard. "I'm getting in the car right now. I'll be there in 4 hours." "No, don't come until this afternoon. I need to do this part alone." "But Sarah," my voice wavered, "am I doing the right thing? He's my son, my baby. What if—" "Stop!" Her voice was fierce. "Listen to me, Michelle Ann Richardson Parker. You are doing exactly the right thing. That man is not your baby. Your baby wouldn't lay hands on his own mother. You are protecting yourself. And honestly, you're probably saving his life. If you let this slide, if you enable this, he'll keep getting worse until—" She didn't finish, but I knew. Until he kills you or someone else. "I love you," I said. "I love you too, and I'm proud as hell of you. Now hang up and finish whatever you're doing. Call me when it's done." 3 phone calls, 3 pillars of support, law authority family. Now for the setting. I spent the next 3 hours preparing the stage for what would be the most important meal of my life. The biscuits came out perfect golden fluffy, the kind that make your mouth water just looking at them. I made peach preserves from scratch, the fruit bubbling and thickening into sweet perfection. Cheese grits, creamy and rich. Fresh coffee, strong and dark. All of Ethan's favorites. All the foods I'd made him as a child when he was sick, when he was sad, when he needed comfort. One last meal before everything changed. I set the table with meticulous care. The white linen tablecloth that I'd used for every holiday, every celebration. My grandmother's china. Thomas's mother's silverware. The crystal vase, the only good one left unbroken, with a single white camellia from the garden. 4 place settings. Head of the table mine, where I belonged. Right side for Victoria, left side for James, far end for Ethan, the seat of judgment. By 7:00 a.m. everything was ready. The food was warming in the oven. The table was perfect. The evidence was documented. All that while I stood in my kitchen and looked around. Really looked. This room had been my sanctuary for 36 years, the heart of my home, the place where I'd made birthday cakes and Christmas cookies, where I'd cried after Thomas died, where I'd meal prepped for my overnight shifts, where I'd taught Ethan to cook when he was 12. A man should know how to feed himself, baby. In a few hours, it would be the room where I chose myself over my son. The weight of that decision settled over me like a heavy blanket. I looked at my reflection in the kitchen window, backlit by the overhead light. The bruises were darker now, more visible. My lip was grotesquely swollen. I looked like a victim of domestic violence, because that's what I was. The thought sent a spike of shame through me. How had I let it get to this point? How had I not seen it coming? But I knew how. Love, obligation, hope. The desperate belief that the boy I raised was still in there somewhere, buried under the anger and alcohol. That my love could fix him. That if I just tried hard enough, sacrificed enough, gave enough, he would come back to me. That was the lie I'd been telling myself. That love was supposed to be unconditional. That mothers never gave up on their children. That family meant forever, no matter what. But I'd learned something important in the last 6 hours. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's enabling. It's self-destruction. It's a slow suicide where you kill yourself piece by piece trying to save someone who doesn't want to be saved. And I was done dying. I went upstairs to my bedroom, moved carefully, quietly. I didn't want to wake him. Not yet. Not until everything was in place. In my closet, I pulled out the navy dress. Simple, modest, appropriate. The color Thomas had always loved. I put it on slowly, my sore muscles protesting. Zipped it up. Smoothed it down. I didn't shower. Didn't wash my face beyond the basic cleaning I'd done at 12:30 a.m. I wanted the bruises visible. Wanted them to speak for themselves. I pulled my hair back into a neat bun, careful not to touch the tender spot on the back of my head where it had hit the cabinet. No makeup, no jewelry except my wedding ring, the one piece of Thomas I wore every single day. I looked in my full-length mirror. The woman staring back at me was a stranger. Bruised, battered, but not broken. There was steel in her eyes, a strength I'd forgotten I had. She was the woman my mother raised, my grandmother's granddaughter, Thomas's wife. She was Michelle Parker, and she was taking her life back. I heard stirring upstairs, water running. Ethan was awake taking his hungover shower. I checked my watch, 7:38 a.m. 22 minutes until Victoria and James arrived. 22 minutes until my son's world came crashing down. I went downstairs moving with purpose now, each step a choice, each moment a declaration. I am worth protecting. I deserve safety in my own home. I will not be a victim. I will not be silent. In the dining room, I stood at the head of the table, placed my hands on the back of my chair, Thomas's chair, the one I'd avoided sitting in for 15 years because it felt too big, too important, too much his. Today I claimed it. I sat down, straightened my spine, folded my hands in my lap, and I waited. Upstairs I heard Ethan's footsteps, heard him moving around his room getting dressed. Any moment now he'd smell the coffee, the biscuits. Any moment now he'd come downstairs expecting a normal morning, expecting me to have cleaned up the broken vase, bandaged my own wounds, and moved on like nothing happened. He'd expect his mother, the one who always forgave, always enabled, always put him first. He was about to meet someone different. The stairs creaked under his weight. I didn't turn around, didn't move, just sat there waiting, my heartbeat steady and strong. This was it. The moment everything changed. The stairs creaked. Third step from the bottom, the one that always groaned under weight, the one Thomas had promised to fix for 15 years but never got around to. That creak was as familiar to me as my own heartbeat. Ethan was coming down. I didn't turn my head, didn't move a muscle. Just sat there at the head of my dining table, hands folded back straight, looking directly at the empty chair across from me, the chair I'd designated as his judgment seat. The footsteps paused at the bottom of the stairs. I could picture him there, one hand on the banister, probably rubbing his forehead with the other. The morning after ritual I'd watched 100 times, the hangover, the confusion, the piecing together of what he could remember from the night before. I wondered what he remembered about last night. Everything, nothing, something in between. The footsteps started again, moving toward the hallway. I heard him stop, heard a small sound. Was it a grunt? A sigh, then the scrape of his shoe against the hardwood floor. He was kicking the broken vase pieces aside, not picking them up, not even acknowledging what they represented. Just clearing a path, like they were trash. Like my grandmother's heirloom was an inconvenience in his morning routine. The anger that flared in my chest was clean and pure. Not the messy, guilty anger I'd been swallowing for 3 years. This was righteous, clarifying, good. I'd need that anger for what came next. His footsteps approached the dining room. I could smell him before I saw him. The sour smell of bourbon sweated through skin mixed with cheap body wash from his quick shower. He'd tried to wash off last night. Tried to wash off the violence. Tried to start fresh. Too late for that. He appeared in the doorway. For a moment, just a flash, I saw him as a stranger might see him. A man approaching middle age, running to seed. Soft around the middle from too much drinking and not enough activity. Hair damp and uncombed. Wrinkled khakis that had seen better days. A polo shirt with a stain near the collar that hadn't come out in the wash. This was my son, the baby boy I'd nursed. The toddler who'd clung to my leg on his first day of preschool. The teenager who'd made the honor roll. The college graduate I'd applauded so proudly. What happened to him? What happened to me that I let it get this far? His eyes swept the room, taking in the scene. The fancy table setting. The smell of butter and coffee and home. The platters of food still steaming slightly. His eyebrows drew together in confusion. Then his gaze found me. I watched his face carefully. Watched for the moment when he registered my injuries. When he saw what he'd done to me. There. His eyes widened slightly, fixed on my split lip. Traveled up to the bruise under my eye, dark purple now in the morning light. I saw something flicker across his features. For one heartbeat I thought it was remorse. But then his expression shifted. Smoothed out, and what replaced it made my stomach turn. Satisfaction. Just a ghost of it. A micro-expression. But I'd been a nurse for 40 years. I knew how to read faces, how to see what people tried to hide. He was pleased with himself. He'd finally put me in my place. Finally asserted his dominance in his house. Finally shown me who was boss. The anger in my chest burned hotter. Well, his voice was scratchy rough from sleep and last night's yelling. He straightened his shoulders, puffed out his chest slightly. The posture of a man who thinks he's won something. What's all this? He walked into the room with a swagger that would have been funny if it weren't so grotesque. pulled out the chair across from me exactly where I'd known he'd sit, and dropped into it heavily. The chair creaked under his weight. He leaned back, spread his legs wide, taking up space, claiming territory. "I gotta say, Mom." He reached for the biscuit platter, selected the most perfect golden one right from the center, held it up, admiring it. "Nobody makes biscuits like you do." He took a huge bite, chewed with his mouth open, crumbs falling onto my pristine white tablecloth. Some landed on the blue flowers of my grandmother's china. He didn't notice, didn't care. He swallowed, took another bite, talked with his mouth full. "See, this is how it should be. A little discipline and everything falls right back into place. You understand now, right? Sometimes a man's gotta—" The doorbell rang, sharp, clear, cutting through his words like a knife. Ding dong. The sound echoed through the house, through my bones, through the moment. 8:00 a.m., exactly on time. Ethan froze. The biscuit stopped halfway to his mouth for another bite. His jaw, which had been working on the food, went still. His eyes bleary and bloodshot, but suddenly alert shot to me. "Who the hell is that?" I didn't answer. Just looked at him steadily, my hands still folded calmly in my lap. His face flushed. That quick anger I'd learned to recognize rising like mercury in a thermometer. "Did you invite someone over, Mom? I don't want company. I'm not in the mood for your church ladies, or—" "That would be the company I invited," I said. My voice was quiet, steady. It didn't even sound like mine anymore. It sounded like someone who knew exactly what they were doing. "What it—" His voice rose. The biscuit fell from his hand, hitting the plate with a soft thud. "Are you serious right now? You can see we're having—" He gestured at the table, at himself, at me. "Send them away." The doorbell rang again, patient, insistent. "Mom," his voice went sharp, dangerous. "Did you hear me? I said send them the fuck away." I stood up, slowly, carefully, making him wait, making him watch. I smoothed the front of my navy dress, feeling the fabric under my palms, feeling myself in my own skin, in my own power, in my own house. "No," I said simply. His mouth fell open, literally gaped. In 3 years of living under my roof, drinking my water, eating my food, I had never once told him no. Not directly, not like this. "What did you just—" But I was already walking, past his chair, past the table with its perfect setting, past the boundary line between the old Michelle and the new one. "Mom," he stood up, chair scraping back. "Don't you walk away from me. I'm talking to you. Get back here and—" I kept walking, through the dining room, through the hallway, my shoes clicking softly on the hardwood, past the broken vase pieces he'd kicked into the corner. Behind me, I heard him following, heard the anger building in his voice. "If you open that door, I swear to God you're embarrassing me. This is my house too. My house, my door, my choice." I reached the front door, put my hand on the brass knob, cool and solid under my palm, took one breath, and opened it. Morning light flooded the hallway, making me blink. The air that rushed in was fresh, clean, scented with jasmine from the garden. It felt like breathing for the first time in 3 years. Standing on my porch were 3 people. Judge Victoria Thompson was first, 72 years old and magnificent. She wore a peach linen pantsuit that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill, perfectly tailored, not a wrinkle in sight. A string of pearls, real ones from her late husband, circled her throat. Her silver hair was styled in a sleek bob that framed her dark face beautifully. But it was her eyes that held me. Sharp, knowing, kind. She'd seen the worst of humanity in her 30 years on the federal bench, seen people at their absolute lowest, and somehow she'd kept her faith in justice, in right, in the possibility of change. She looked at my face, at the split lip, at the bruise. I saw her jaw tighten, saw her nostrils flare slightly, but her expression remained calm, controlled. A nod. Just one. It said, "Everything I see you. I believe you. We're doing this." Beside her stood Detective James Carter, 56 years old, 6'2", built like the college linebacker he'd once been. His Savannah PD uniform was crisp, pressed the badge on his chest, polished to a shine. He held his hat in his hands, a gesture of respect, but his posture was all business. His eyes met mine, and I saw pain there. Pain for me. Pain for Thomas's memory. Pain for what he was about to have to do. Behind them both was Officer Lisa Rodriguez. Younger, maybe 30, with dark hair pulled back in a regulation bun and sharp, intelligent eyes. She wore her uniform with the quiet confidence of someone who knew her job and did it well. A body camera was clipped to her chest. She held a regular camera in her right hand. Documentation. Evidence. This was real. "Good morning, Michelle." Victoria's voice was warm honey over steel. The voice that had commanded courtrooms, silenced difficult witnesses, brought order to chaos. "Good morning, Victoria." I heard my own voice steady and clear. "Detective Carter, Officer Rodriguez, please come in. The coffee is fresh." I stepped back, holding the door wide. They entered in a line. Professional, purposeful. The click of Victoria's heels. The soft creaking of James's leather duty belt. The rustle of Lisa's uniform. As they passed, Victoria reached out and squeezed my hand. Just once. Quick. Her skin was warm and dry and real. I wasn't alone anymore. Behind me from the dining room I heard a sound. A strangled noise. Something between a gasp and a groan. "Ethan." I turned. He was standing in this hallway archway, one hand braced against the wall as if he needed it to stay upright. His face had gone from the healthy flush of anger to a sickly gray-white in the span of seconds. His eyes were wide, darting from face to face. Victoria in her suit and pearls. James in his uniform. Lisa with her cameras. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. The biscuit he'd been eating was still clutched in his other hand, forgotten. As I watched, his fingers went slack. The biscuit fell, hitting the hardwood floor with a soft sound breaking into golden crumbs. That tiny sound, the breaking of bread, seemed to echo in the sudden silence. Victoria moved first. She walked past Ethan like he wasn't even there, like he was a piece of furniture she was navigating around. Walked straight to the dining room with the authority of someone who'd walked into 1,000 difficult situations and handled every single one. I followed her with my eyes as she surveyed the table. The white linen, the china, the silver, the carefully arranged food. She understood immediately what I'd done. This wasn't just breakfast. This was theater. This was statement. This was power reclaimed. She didn't go to the seat I'd set for her on the right side of the table. Instead, she walked directly to the head. To Thomas's chair. The chair I'd been sitting in just moments ago. The chair that represented authority in this house. She pulled it out, the scrape of wood on wood loud in the shocked silence, and sat down. Claimed it. Claimed the position of power in my dining room, in my home, on my behalf. My throat tightened with gratitude. Victoria set her leather purse on the floor beside her with a decisive thump, smoothed her jacket, folded her hands on the table. And then, only then, did she look at Ethan. Really look at him. He was still frozen in the archway, his face a mask of shock and creeping terror. Sweat had broken out on his forehead. His breathing was coming fast and shallow. "Ethan Parker." Victoria's voice was quiet, conversational, the kind of tone you'd use to discuss the weather or comment on someone's garden. But underneath it was bedrock, immovable, absolute. He swallowed hard. His Adam's apple bobbed. "Judge Thompson." His voice came out hoarse. There's been some kind of—" "Sit down." 2 words. Not a request. A command. Detective James and Officer Lisa had positioned themselves strategically. James near the front door, blocking that exit. Lisa near the kitchen doorway, her camera already out, already documenting. Ethan looked at them, looked at Victoria, looked at me. I saw the moment when it hit him. Really hit him. The full realization of what was happening. This wasn't a friendly visit. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't something he could charm or argue or rage his way out of. This was consequences. His face crumpled. The arrogance melted away, replaced by something raw and desperate. "Mom!" His voice cracked. "Mom, what is this? What did you do?" I didn't answer, didn't move, just stood there in the archway, my hands clasped in front of me, and watched. "Mom, please." Tears were starting in his eyes now. Real or crocodile, I couldn't tell. Didn't care. "Whatever you think happened, we can talk about it. Just us. Family. You don't need—" He gestured helplessly at the room full of witnesses. "Please." Victoria picked up the porcelain coffee pot, poured herself a cup. The dark liquid steamed in the morning light. She added a splash of cream from the small pitcher, stirred it with a silver spoon. The domestic normalcy of the action was somehow more terrible than any words could have been. She took a sip, set the cup down with a gentle clink. "Ethan," she said again, and this time her voice had changed, softened, become almost sad. "I remember when you were 7 years old. Do you remember?" He blinked, confused by the shift. You used to help me carry my groceries from the car. Every Saturday like clockwork. You'd see me pull up and you'd come running across your yard. 'Let me get that, Miss Victoria,' you'd say. 'You shouldn't be carrying heavy things.' A small, bitter smile. Such a polite boy, such a thoughtful boy. Ethan's face twisted. "I don't understand what—" "I remember your father's funeral." Victoria continued as if he hadn't spoken. "You stood next to your mother, and you held her hand, and you were so strong. 21 years old, and you looked just like Thomas in his uniform. Everyone said so. 'That's Thomas's boy,' they said. 'He'll take care of Michelle. He's a good man.'" She paused, took another sip of coffee. When she looked up, her eyes were hard. "So I'm asking you, Ethan, where did that boy go? Where is that good man everyone was so proud of?" Silence. Ethan's mouth worked, but no sound came out. Victoria's gaze shifted to me. "Michelle, would you like to sit down?" I realized I was still standing in the archway, still watching like this was happening to someone else. I moved into the room, took my seat not at the head anymore, but in the chair to Victoria's right, the witness position. Detective James cleared his throat. "Ethan Parker," his voice was formal now, official. "I think you'd better sit down too." Ethan sat, not in the judgment seat I'd set for him, but in a chair pulled away from the table against the wall, defensive positioning, trying to distance himself from what was happening. His hands were shaking. I could see them trembling where they gripped his knees. Detective James pulled out his notebook, flipped it open. The sound of pages rustling was loud in the tense silence. "Mr. Parker," he began, his voice level and professional. "We've received multiple complaints about disturbances at this address over the past 6 months. Ethan's head snapped up. "Complaints from who?" "Noise complaints." James continued, ignoring the question. "Loud music at late hours, shouting, sounds of things breaking. On 3 separate occasions, neighbors called asking if we needed to do a welfare check." The blood was draining from Ethan's face again. Those were misunderstandings. I play music sometimes. So what, it's not—" "We also have a record." James flipped a page of an altercation at the Riverside Tavern on October 3rd. "You were involved in a physical fight. Security had to remove you. The other party declined to press charges, but you were asked not to return to the establishment. That wasn't my fault, the guy was—" "And 2 traffic stops, one on September 12th, one on September 28th. Both times you were driving erratically after leaving a bar. Both times the officers noted you smelled of alcohol but registered just under the legal limit on the breathalyzer." Each item on the list was like a hammer blow. I watched Ethan deflate with every word. "Mr. Parker," James closed his notebook, "you've been on our radar for a while now." "I didn't know." Ethan's voice was small, lost. "No," James agreed. "People rarely know when they're creating patterns, when their behavior is being noticed, when they're spiraling." His gaze hardened. "But ignorance doesn't excuse it." Officer Rodriguez moved slightly. The camera in her hands lifted. "Mr. Parker, I need to document the scene. Please remain seated." She began taking photographs. The table, the food, the broken vase pieces still visible in the hallway, the china cabinet with its cracked wood. And then she turned to me. "Mrs. Parker, may I—" I nodded. The flash went off. Once, twice, 3 times. Different angles of my face. The split lip, the bruise, the evidence. Ethan made a sound, a whimper, like a wounded animal. "This is crazy," he whispered. "You're all treating me like I'm some kind of criminal. I'm not Mom as my mother. We had a fight. That's all. Families fight." "Families don't leave marks," Victoria said quietly. "I was drunk." Ethan's voice rose desperate now. "I didn't mean to. I barely remember what—" "Then let me refresh your memory." Victoria leaned forward. "According to the statement your mother gave to Detective Carter at 4:31 this morning, you came home intoxicated at approximately 11:47 p.m. last night. You broke a family heirloom. You verbally abused her. And then you physically assaulted her. You grabbed her, shook her, shoved her into that cabinet hard enough to crack the wood." She pointed. And then you struck her across the face. Is that an accurate summary, Michelle? All eyes turned to me. This was it. The moment of testimony. The moment where I made it real with my words. Yes, I said. My voice didn't shake. That's accurate. Ethan stood up suddenly, chair scraping back. No, that's not. You're making it sound worse than it was. I pushed you, okay? I pushed you, and maybe I shouldn't have, but you were pushing my buttons, and I'd had a bad day, and so you put your hands on a 64-year-old woman. Detective James's voice was flat, hard. Your mother, in her own home. I didn't mean to hurt her. But you did. Victoria again, relentless. Intent doesn't erase impact, Ethan. You hurt her. Look at her face. That's not an accident. That's not a mistake. That's assault. Mom, Ethan turned to me, tears streaming down his face now. Mom, please, tell them. Tell them it wasn't like that. Tell them we can work this out. Just us. Please. I looked at my son, my baby, my boy, the child I'd loved more than my own life, and I told him the truth. It was exactly like that. Sit down, Ethan. My voice cut through his sobs, quiet but firm, the voice I'd used when he was a toddler throwing tantrums, when he was a teenager testing boundaries, the voice of a mother, but also the voice of a woman who was done being afraid. He sat, collapsed back into his chair like his strings had been cut. I stood up. Michelle, Victoria said gently. You don't have to. Yes, I do. I looked at her, at James, at Lisa with her camera, and finally at Ethan. I need to say this, all of it, out loud, so there's no confusion, no misunderstanding, no more silence. I walked slowly around the table. My back ached where I'd hit the cabinet. Each step was a reminder. Each breath was a choice. I stopped a few feet from Ethan's chair, close enough to see his face, far enough to be safe. You want to talk about family, Ethan? Let's talk about family. My hands were shaking now, so I clasped them together, held on to myself. Family is your father, Thomas Parker, working double shifts to make sure you had everything you needed. Family is him teaching you to ride a bike in Forsyth Park, running behind you until his legs ached. Family is him reading you bedtime stories every single night, even when he was exhausted from a 12-hour patrol, even when he was in pain, even when he was dying inside because he knew. My voice cracked. I pushed through. Because he knew he had a heart condition and might not live to see you grow up. Ethan's face was wet with tears. I know I'm not finished. The command in my voice surprised even me. Family is me working as a nurse for 40 years. Do you know what night shift nursing is like, Ethan? Do you know what it's like to hold someone's hand while they die, then come home and make your son's lunch for school, to work until your feet bleed in your shoes, then come home and help with homework? To watch your husband have a heart attack and know that all those double shifts probably contributed to it, but you had to keep working anyway because someone had to pay for your college. I took a step closer. Family is me at 52 years old, burying the love of my life and standing at that grave and promising him that I would take care of you, that I would make sure you finished school, that I would make sure you became the man he raised you to be. Another step. And I kept that promise, didn't I? I worked extra shifts to pay for your last year at Georgia Tech. I sent you money when your car broke down. I came to your graduation and cried with pride. I bragged about you to everyone at church. My son the engineer. My son the Georgia Tech graduate. My son who's making his father proud. I was standing right in front of him now, looking down at this man who used to be my little boy. That's family, Ethan. That's what family does. That's what love looks like. I paused. Let the silence hang. You want to know what family is not? My voice went cold, hard. Family is not moving into your mother's house and turning it into a prison. Family is not drinking away your pain and making it everyone else's problem. Family is not stealing money from your mother's purse. Family is not yelling at her because she asked you to fix a faucet. Family is not making her afraid to speak in her own home. Ethan was sobbing openly now. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean. And family, I continued, my voice rising, is absolutely not putting your hands on her in anger. It's not shoving her into furniture. It's not breaking her grandmother's vase. It's not slapping her across the face and then going to bed like it was nothing. I was yelling now. Months, years of held back words pouring out. You turned me into a liar, Ethan. Do you understand that when my friends asked if I was okay, I lied? When Diana noticed I looked tired, I lied. When Victoria asked about the yelling she heard through the walls, I lied for you. I know I'm sorry, I'll change. I promise I'll— How many times have you promised Ethan, huh? I was breathing hard now, the words coming faster. How many hungover mornings have you woken up crying and begging for forgiveness? How many times have I believed you? How many times have I cleaned up your messes and made excuses and protected you from the consequences of your own actions? I leaned down, making him look at me. My forgiveness has been killing both of us. Don't you see that every time I forgave you without you changing, I gave you permission? I told you that you could treat me like garbage and I'd still be here. That you could drink yourself to death and I'd catch you. That you could hit me and I'd still make you breakfast. The word hit hung in the air like a gunshot. Ethan covered his face with his hands. I didn't mean to hit you. I swear to God I didn't. But you did. My voice dropped to a whisper, somehow more terrible than the yelling. You put your hand across my face and you hit me. And you know what this worst part was? I waited until he looked up, until his eyes met mine. The worst part wasn't the pain. Pain goes away. Bruises heal. The worst part was your silence afterward. The way you turned your back on me while I was bleeding on the floor. The way you went to bed like I was nothing. Like 39 years of my life of loving you, raising you, sacrificing for you meant nothing. A sob tore out of him, raw and broken. And this morning, I continued relentlessly, this morning you came down here thinking I'd forgiven you already. Thinking the fancy breakfast meant everything was fine. You actually thought you'd won something. I saw it on your face, Ethan. That little smile. That satisfaction. Like you'd finally put me in my place. No, I didn't. I wasn't. Yes, you were. I straightened up, stepped back. And that's when I knew. I knew that the boy I raised is gone. The man I'm looking at now is a stranger. A dangerous stranger who would hurt his own mother and feel proud of it. I'm not a stranger. His voice was desperate, pleading. I'm your son. I'm Ethan. I'm still me. Then where have you been? I asked quietly. Where have you been for 3 years while this stranger lived in my house? Where was my son when I needed him? Where was my boy? He had no answer. Detective James stepped forward. Mrs. Parker, I think we have enough for— Wait. Victoria held up a hand. She was looking at something on Officer Rodriguez's tablet. Her expression had changed, hardened. Lisa, show Michelle. Lisa walked over, held out the tablet. On the screen was an audio file, a waveform. A timestamp, September 28th, 2023, 1:14 a.m. This is from your neighbor at 247 Oak Street, Lisa said quietly. Mrs. Chen installed a Ring doorbell system 6 months ago. It has audio recording capability. She pressed play. Crash. Breaking glass. You stupid bitch. This is my house, mine. A woman's voice soft. Ethan, please calm down. Don't tell me to calm down. I'll burn this whole place down if I want to. It's my inheritance. More crashing. A woman's cry. Sobbing. The audio cut off. My legs went weak. I grabbed the table for support. There are 17 recordings, Lisa said, spanning 6 months, all similar content. The neighbors knew. My voice was barely a whisper. All this time. They knew, James confirmed gently. They called us 3 times asking for welfare checks. But without you filing a complaint, without you asking for help, there was nothing we could legally do. I looked at Ethan. He'd gone gray again, staring at the tablet like it was a bomb. Did you know people could hear you? I asked him. I know, I thought— He swallowed. I thought it was just us. It's never just us when you're hurting someone, Victoria said. Violence has a way of being witnessed even behind closed doors. Ethan stood up suddenly. The chair crashed backward. This is insane. His voice cracked on the word desperate and wild. You're all acting like I'm some kind of monster, like I'm a criminal. I made mistakes. Okay, I had a rough few years and I made mistakes, but I'm not. You're not what? Detective James stepped forward, his hand resting on his belt. Not threatening, just ready. You're not responsible. You're not dangerous. You're not exactly what the evidence shows you are. I'm her son. Ethan's voice rose to a shout. I'm her family. I lost everything. My job, my home, my life. And she was supposed to help me. That's what mothers do. Mothers help, I said quietly. They don't enable. They don't sacrifice themselves on the altar of your dysfunction. And they don't let their children destroy them. I'm not destroying you. You're being dramatic. So we had a fight. So I pushed you a little. You've never been pushed before. You've never lost your temper. You're acting like I tried to kill you. The room went silent. Is that the line, Ethan? Victoria's voice was ice. That's where we draw it. As long as you didn't try to kill her, it's acceptable. That's not what because I've seen plenty of domestic violence cases that started exactly like this, she continued. A push, a shove, then a slap, then a punch, then a stop. Ethan put his hands over his ears like a child. Stop it. You're twisting everything you don't understand. Then explain it to us. Detective James pulled out his handcuffs. Let them hang from his hand where Ethan could see them. Explain how a grown man justifies assaulting his 64-year-old mother. Ethan's eyes locked on the handcuffs. The color drained completely from his face. No. His voice was small, broken. No, you can't, you wouldn't. He turned to me, fell to his knees. Mom, please, please don't let them. I'm begging you. I'll do anything. Anything. I'll stop drinking. I'll get a job. I'll move out. I'll go to therapy. I'll just please don't let them take me, please. He was sobbing, reaching for me, his hands trembling. I looked down at my son on his knees before me. This was the moment, the final moment, the point of no return. I could stop this, call it off, take him back, give him one more chance, just one more. That's what mothers do, right? They forgive, they sacrifice, they love unconditionally. But I'd learned something in the last 12 hours. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's suicide, and I was choosing life. Stand up, Ethan. Mom, please, stand up. He did, shakily, face wet with tears and snot and desperation. I looked at him, really looked at him, tried to find my boy in this broken man's face. I love you, I said. I will always love you. You're my son, my baby. But loving you doesn't mean letting you destroy me. I won't, I promise. Just don't. I've made my decision. I turned to Detective James. I want to press charges, full charges, whatever you can give me. Ethan made a sound like he'd been punched. No, Mom, you can't. This will ruin my life. I'll have a record. I'll never get a job. You're going to destroy my future. Detective James moved forward, professional, practiced. He'd done this 1,000 times. Ethan Parker, stand up and place your hands behind your back. Don't touch me. Ethan backed against the wall. You can't do this. Mom, tell him you don't want this. Ethan, James said calmly, don't make this harder than it has to be. You're already facing assault charges. Don't add resisting arrest. Resisting. I'm not resisting. This is my home. You can't just come into my home and it's your mother's home, Victoria corrected. You're a guest, and you assaulted your host. Ethan looked around wildly. At me, at Victoria, at Officer Rodriguez with her camera, looking for an ally, an escape, finding none. His shoulders slumped. The fight went out of him. Please, he whispered. Please don't do this. James took his arm gently, firmly, turned him around. The handcuffs came out. Click, the right wrist. Click, the left wrist. The sound was final, absolute. Ethan Parker. James began, his voice taking on the formal cadence I'd heard on TV 100 times, but never thought I'd hear in my own dining room. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. Do you understand these rights as I have explained them to you? Ethan didn't answer, just stood there, hands cuffed behind his back, staring at the floor. Mr. Parker, I need you to acknowledge that you understand. I understand. Barely a whisper. Okay, let's go. James started walking him toward the front door. Officer Rodriguez followed, still documenting. As they passed me, Ethan stopped, lifted his head, looked at me with red, swollen eyes. For a moment I saw him. My boy, the child he used to be, the man he could have been. You're going to regret this, he said. His voice was flat, empty. When you're all alone in this big house with your old junk and your memories, you're going to regret sending me away. You're going to wish you'd given me another chance. The threat was clear. the manipulation, the final attempt to make me feel guilty, but I'd learned to recognize it now. Maybe, I said steadily, maybe I will regret parts of this. Maybe I'll lie awake at night wondering if I did the right thing. Maybe I'll grieve for the rest of my life. I stepped closer, close enough that only he could hear. But I will never ever regret choosing my own safety. I will never regret choosing my own life. And if that makes me a bad mother in your eyes, then so be it. I'd rather be a bad mother who's alive than a good mother who's dead. Something flickered in his eyes. Understanding, maybe, or just more rage. I couldn't tell. Let's go, Ethan. James tugged gently on his arm. They walked out, through my hallway, past the broken vase pieces, out my front door into the bright Savannah morning. I stood in the doorway and watched James guide Ethan into the back of the police car, hand on his head to protect him such a small kindness. Watched the door close, watched the car pull away from my curb. Neighbors were watching. Mrs. Chen from across the street, the Robinsons from next door. They'd all known, all heard. And now they were seeing the result. I didn't hide, didn't duck my head in shame. I stood in my doorway, bruises visible, and I watched my son be taken away. The police car turned the corner, disappeared, and then it was over. I stood there for a long moment, feeling the morning sun on my face, hearing the birds singing, smelling the jasmine. My legs started to shake. The adrenaline that had kept me upright for the past hour drained away all at once. I stumbled backward. Victoria was there, caught my elbow, guided me to a chair. "It's over," she said softly. "It's over, Michelle. You did it." And then finally, I broke. I covered my face with my hands, and I wept. Deep, tearing sobs that came from somewhere so deep inside me I didn't know it existed. Grief and relief and horror and freedom all mixed together. I cried for my son, for the boy he was, for the man he'd never be. I cried for myself, for the years of silence, for the bruises, for the fear. I cried for Thomas, for the fact that he'd never know what his son became. And I cried because I was finally safe. Victoria held my hand, didn't speak, just sat with me while I fell apart. Officer Rodriguez brought me water. Detective James called for a victim advocate to come to the house. And slowly, so slowly, I began to put myself back together. But this time I was putting myself together differently. Stronger, wiser, with boundaries made of steel. This time I was building a Michelle who would never again sacrifice herself for someone else's dysfunction. This time I was free. The house was too quiet. That was the first thing I noticed after the police car drove away, after Victoria and Officer Rodriguez left, after Detective James gave me his card and the number for a victim advocate and a gentle squeeze on my shoulder. Too quiet. No footsteps overhead. No bottles clinking in the recycling bin. No slurred voice yelling at the TV. No tension crackling through the air like electricity before a storm. Just silence. I sat in my living room that first afternoon, still wearing my navy dress, still feeling the ache in my back and the throb in my lip, and I listened to the silence. The grandfather clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. Outside a mockingbird sang. Normal sounds. House sounds. The sounds of a home, not a prison. I should have felt relief. I should have felt free. Instead, I felt numb. My phone rang. Diana from church. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. My sister Sarah calling from the road. I answered that one. "I'm 2 hours out," she said without preamble. "I'm coming to stay for a few days. Don't argue." I didn't argue. She arrived at 4:37 p.m., swept into my house with her overnight bag and a Tupperware container of her famous chicken and dumplings, took one look at my face, and burst into tears. "Oh, honey." She wrapped me in her arms. "Oh, Michelle." We stood in my hallway, the hallway where I'd been thrown against the cabinet where the broken vase pieces still lay in the corner, and we cried together. That night Sarah cleaned while I sat. She swept up the ceramic shards, each piece wrapped carefully in newspaper. "We'll glue it back together," she said. "With gold like that Japanese art. What's it called?" "Kintsugi," I said. "Golden repair." "Right, we'll make it beautiful again. Scars and all." She scrubbed the blood I'd missed from the baseboard, cleaned the fingerprints off the china cabinet, made the house look like nothing had happened. But something had happened, and we both knew no amount of cleaning would erase it. The next morning the whispers started. I went to the mailbox and saw Mrs. Chen across the street pretending to water her already wet flowers. Our eyes met. She looked away quickly, guilt written all over her face. She knew. She'd known for months. Her Ring doorbell had recorded my nightmare, and she'd done nothing. I wanted to be angry, wanted to march over there and demand why she hadn't helped, why she'd just listened and called the police but never knocked on my door, never asked if I was okay. But I understood. I'd been raised the same way. You don't interfere in family business. You don't air dirty laundry. You mind your own business and pray things work out. That code of silence had almost killed me. I was about to go back inside when she called out, "Michelle?" I turned. She was walking across the street carrying something wrapped in a dish towel. Her hands shook slightly as she approached. "I brought you some dumplings." She held out the bundle. I should have brought them months ago. I should have done a lot of things months ago. I took the dumplings. They were still warm. "I heard the yelling," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "And the breaking. And I called the police, but they said without you filing a complaint." She trailed off, tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't do more." I could have been bitter. Could have told her that her sorry didn't help when I was lying on the floor bleeding. Instead, I surprised myself. "Thank you for the dumplings," I said. They said. "And thank you for calling the police. Even if they couldn't act on it, you tried. That's more than nothing." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "If you need anything at all." Twist number 4, the unexpected support. The dumplings were just the beginning. That afternoon, Pastor Williams came by. Then Diana. Then 3 women from the church quilting circle. Then Mr. Robinson from next door, who I'd barely spoken to in 20 years. They brought food, flowers, offers to sit with me to help however they could. "We knew something was wrong," Diana admitted, sitting at my kitchen table with tea growing cold between us. "We saw how you changed, how you stopped coming to events, how you looked tired all the time, how you flinched when someone raised their voice." She reached across and squeezed my hand. "We should have pushed harder, should have made you talk to us." "I wouldn't have," I admitted. "The shame was too much." "Shame," she said the word like it tasted bad. "Michelle Parker, you have nothing to be ashamed of. You're not the one who should be carrying that. He is." But that was the thing about shame. It didn't care about logic. It settled in your bones whether you deserved it or not. By the 3rd day, I'd received 17 calls, 12 visits, and enough casseroles to feed an army. The community hadn't abandoned me. They'd been waiting for me to let them help. On day 4, the doubt crept in. I was making tea, something to do with my hands, when I found Ethan's favorite mug in the cabinet. The one with the Georgia Tech logo. He'd had it since college. I held it, feeling the weight of ceramic and memory, and thought, what have I done? He was my son, my baby, and I'd had him arrested. Put him in jail, put a mark on his record that would follow him forever. What kind of mother does that? The tea kettle whistled. I set down the mug and turned off the stove, but I couldn't stop the spiral. Maybe I'd overreacted. Maybe one slap wasn't worth destroying his life over. Maybe if I'd just talked to him when he was sober, set some boundaries, given him an ultimatum. My phone rang. "Victoria, how are you holding up?" she asked. The words caught. "I'm wondering if I did the right thing." Silence, then firm and clear. "Michelle, listen to me. You did the only thing, not the easy thing, not the comfortable thing, the necessary thing. If you take him back now, if you drop the charges, you teach him that violence works, that if he just waits you out, you'll fold. But he's my son, and you're a human being who deserves to be safe in her own home. Those two things don't cancel each other out. You can love him and protect yourself. You can want him to get better and refuse to be his punching bag while he figures it out." I closed my eyes, let her words sink in. "He's in custody now," she continued. "He's sober, probably for the first time in years. He's facing real consequences. This is the wake-up call, Michelle. This is what rock bottom looks like. And it's the only chance he has to actually change. What if he doesn't? Then at least you'll be safe while he destroys himself. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved, but you can stop them from taking you down too." After we hung up, I poured the tea, sat at my kitchen table, and made a decision. I would not second-guess myself. I would not let guilt override my instinct for self-preservation. I had chosen life. I would keep choosing it. On day 7, I took the first step toward building a new normal. I called a locksmith, had every lock in the house changed. New keys, new deadbolts, new security. Then I called a therapist. I need help, I told Dr. Simone Reeves, a trauma specialist Pastor Williams had recommended. I need to understand how I let this happen, and I need to make sure it never happens again. We can do that, she said. When can you come in tomorrow, and every week after that, however long it takes? 3 weeks after the arrest, a letter arrived. Plain white envelope, Ethan's handwriting. Return address, Chatham County Detention Center. My hands shook as I held it. Sarah was in Atlanta, so I was alone. I stood in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd made the decision to call the police, and stared at that envelope for 10 full minutes. Finally, I opened it. Dear Mom, I don't know how to start this. I've written this letter 17 times and thrown away every version because nothing sounds right. How do you apologize for the unforgivable? I'm sober now. 21 days. First time in almost 3 years. They don't give you a choice in here. And you know what's funny? Not funny, haha. Funny terrible. I remember everything now. All the things I told myself I forgot. All the things I blamed on the alcohol. I remember throwing grandmother's vase. I remember the sound it made when it broke. I remember yelling at you, calling you names. And I remember putting my hands on you, pushing you, hitting you. I remember the look on your face. Not anger, not even fear, just sadness, disappointment, like you were looking at a stranger. I was a stranger, Mom. I don't even recognize the person I became. But that's not an excuse. That person was still me. I made those choices. I picked up the bottle. I let the anger consume me. I hurt you. The counselor here makes me write in a journal. Yesterday's prompt was, describe the worst thing you've ever done. I filled 12 pages. All about you. All about what I did to the person who loved me most in the world. I blamed you for everything, didn't I? For Dad dying. For my job loss. For my failures. I made you responsible for my happiness, and then I punished you when you couldn't deliver it. That's not love. I don't know what it is, but it's not love. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm not writing to ask you to drop the charges. I deserve those too. I'm writing because my counselor said you might need to hear this. It wasn't your fault. You didn't make me drink. You didn't make me angry. You didn't make me violent. I did that. All of it. And I'm the only one who can fix it. You were an amazing mother. You are an amazing mother. Dad would be so proud of you for what you did. For having the courage I didn't have. For loving me enough to let me face consequences. I'm entering a 90-day rehab program. After that, I don't know what happens. But I know this, I won't come back to Oak Street. That house is yours. Your sanctuary. I poisoned it enough. Thank you for saving my life by refusing to save me anymore. Your son Ethan, I read it 5 times. Cried through each one. Then I folded it carefully, put it in my nightstand drawer, and didn't respond. Victoria had advised against contact during the legal proceedings. And honestly, I didn't know what to say. The letter was good, real, but words were easy. Change was hard. I would wait and see if his actions matched his words. For now, the letter was enough. Proof that somewhere inside the monster my son still existed. 6 weeks after the arrest, we went to court. Not a dramatic trial like on TV. Ethan's lawyer, a public defender named Marcus Wright, had advised him to plead guilty. The evidence was overwhelming. The neighbor recordings, the photographs, my testimony. Fighting it would only make things worse. The sentencing hearing was in a small courtroom. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, the smell of floor polish and old paper. I sat in the front row with Victoria on one side and Sarah on the other. Detective James sat behind us. A show of support. Ethan was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs. He'd lost weight. His face was thinner, his eyes clearer. He looked like himself again. Almost. He saw me and his face crumpled. Mouthed, "I'm sorry." I nodded. Didn't smile. Just acknowledged. The prosecutor went first. Laid out the facts with clinical precision. The assault, the pattern of behavior, the recordings. She presented the medical photos of my injuries, asked for the maximum sentence. Then Marcus Wright stood up for the defense. Your Honor, my client is not disputing the facts. He did what he's accused of. He assaulted his mother. He takes full responsibility." He paused. "But I'd like the court to consider context. Ethan Parker had a clean record before 2020. He was a college graduate employed living independently. Then COVID took his job, his home, his stability. He painted a picture of decline, of a man who'd lost everything and hadn't known how to cope, who turned to alcohol as medicine and found only poison. He's been sober for 45 days now. He's completed anger management classes. He's been accepted into a 90-day inpatient rehab program. He's doing the work, Your Honor. He's trying to become the man his mother raised him to be." Then it was my turn. Judge Anderson, a stern woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes, looked at me. "Mrs. Parker, you're the victim in this case. Do you wish to make a statement?" I stood. My legs were shaking, but my voice was steady. "Yes, Your Honor." I walked to the podium, didn't look at Ethan, looked at the judge. "Your Honor, I don't want revenge. I don't want to punish my son just for the sake of punishment. But I do want justice, and I want safety." I took a breath. Domestic violence doesn't always look like what you see on TV. It's not always black eyes and broken bones. Sometimes it's 3 years of slow erosion, of walking on eggshells, of losing yourself one insult, one threat, one slap at a time. I could feel Ethan's eyes on me, kept my gaze on the judge. "I love my son. I always will. But love doesn't mean accepting abuse, and forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting." Now I turned, looked at Ethan directly. "I'm asking this court to mandate treatment, to require accountability, to keep the protective order in place, not forever, but until he proves through actions, not words, that he's safe, that he's changed, that he's the man his father would have wanted him to be." I sat down. Sarah squeezed my hand. Judge Anderson reviewed the file, looked at Ethan, looked at me. "Mr. Parker, stand up." He did, slowly, chains rattling. "What you did to your mother is inexcusable, unforgivable. You violated the person who gave you life, who raised you, who gave you every opportunity to succeed. You turned her home into a prison and her love into a weapon." Ethan's head dropped. "However," the judge's voice softened slightly, "I've reviewed your record. I've read the counselor's report from the detention center. I've seen that you're trying. The question is, will it last?" She announced the sentence. 6 months in county jail suspended, 18 months supervised probation, mandatory 90-day inpatient rehab, weekly AA meetings for 2 years, anger management classes, random drug and alcohol testing, 5-year protective order, no contact with Michelle unless she initiates. If he violated any term, full 6 months, activated immediately. "This is your chance, Mr. Parker," Judge Anderson said. "Your only chance. Don't waste it." "I won't, Your Honor. Thank you." They took him away, back to jail until his rehab bed opened up in 2 weeks. As he passed my row, he stopped. The bailiff allowed it. "Mom," his voice cracked. "Thank you. I know you don't owe me anything, but thank you for not giving up on me completely." "I didn't do this for you, Ethan," I said quietly. "I did it for me, because I deserve better. And maybe you'll learn that you deserve better too. Better than the person you've been." He nodded, tears streaming. "I love you. I love you too. But love isn't enough anymore. You need to do the work." "I will. I promise." The bailiff led him away. I watched him go, and for the first time in weeks I felt something other than grief or anger or fear. I felt hope. Small, fragile, but real. Spring came to Savannah like a blessing. The azaleas bloomed. The air turned soft and sweet. And I slowly, painfully, beautifully came back to life. Therapy with Dr. Reeves became my anchor. Every Tuesday at 2 p.m., I sat in her comfortable office and unpacked 40 years of people-pleasing self-sacrifice and silence. "You were taught that being a good woman meant making yourself small," she told me during our 4th session. "That being a good mother meant endless giving, that love meant no boundaries." "Isn't that what it means?" I'd asked. "No, Michelle. That's what codependency means. Love with boundaries is still love. Actually, it's the healthiest kind." I rejoined the church choir, started volunteering at the domestic violence shelter, answering phones, offering the perspective of someone who'd been there, who'd survived. I went to dinner with Diana, joined a book club, took a watercolor class at the senior center. I remembered who I was before I became just Ethan's mother. I was Michelle, nurse, singer, friend, sister, widow, survivor, and I was enough. All by myself. The house felt different now, lighter. The security system I'd installed gave me peace of mind. The new locks made me feel safe, and the silence once oppressive became peaceful. I repaired my grandmother's vase using kintsugi, filling the cracks with gold. It sat on my mantel now, more beautiful for having been broken. Like me. The probation officer's monthly reports came like clockwork. Ethan had completed the 90-day rehab. He was living in a sober house, working at a Home Depot entry-level, but honest work, attending AA meetings religiously, seeing a therapist twice a week, 6 months sober, then 7, then 8. He sent letters. I read them all, but responded to none. The protective order allowed me to initiate contact, but I wasn't ready. Then in May, his probation officer called me directly. "Mrs. Parker, this is Officer Williams. I wanted to give you an update on Ethan." My heart clenched. "Is he okay?" "He's doing very well, actually. Best I've seen in 15 years of doing this job. He's asked permission to request a supervised meeting with you. No pressure, you have every right to say no. But I wanted you to hear it from me first." I sat down. "A meeting, with a mediator present, neutral location, 1 hour. He says he's not asking for forgiveness or reconciliation. He just wants to apologize in person, show you he's changed." I thought about it for 3 days, finally called Dr. Reeves. "What are you afraid of?" she asked. "That I'll see him and fall back into old patterns, that I'll let him back in and he'll hurt me again." "What do you want?" I paused, thought. "I want to see if the change is real, if my son is actually in there. Then go. But remember, seeing him doesn't mean trusting him. Listening doesn't mean forgiving. You can witness his growth and still maintain your boundaries." I called Officer Williams back. "Okay, I'll meet with him." The mediation center was neutral. Beige walls, comfortable chairs, a box of tissues on the table. Dr. Patricia Chen, the mediator, met me at the door. "Michelle, I'm Dr. Chen. Thank you for coming. Are you ready? My hands were shaking. My heart was racing, but I nodded. Yes. She led me to a room. Ethan was already there, sitting in a chair, hands folded in his lap. He looked different, really different. The weight loss was dramatic, 40 pounds at least, but healthy. His face was clear. His eyes were bright. He wore a simple button-down shirt, clean jeans, work boots. His hair was cut neatly, but the biggest change was in how he held himself. Not the swagger of arrogance, not the slump of defeat, just calm, present, humble. He stood when I entered, didn't move toward me, just stood. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, Ethan." We sat, 6 feet between us. Dr. Chen sat to the side. "Ethan," she began, "you asked for this meeting. Why don't you start?" He took a deep breath, looked directly at me. "Mom, I asked you here to apologize. In person. Face to face. Not because I expect anything from you. Not because I want you to forgive me or take me back or drop the protective order. Just because you deserve to hear it." He swallowed hard. "I destroyed your sense of safety in your own home. I took the one place you should have felt protected and made it a war zone. I used your love as a weapon against you. I made you choose between your safety and your son." His voice cracked, but he pushed through. "I blamed you for my failures. I made you responsible for my happiness and then punished you when you couldn't deliver it. And then," he took a shaky breath, "I put my hands on you in anger. I hurt you, physically, and that is unforgivable." Tears streamed down his face, but he didn't look away. "I'm not the same person who did that. These past 9 months have been hell, but they've also been the most important months of my life. I've been sober, really sober, and in sobriety I had to face what I'd become, what I'd done to you." He wiped his eyes. "I'm not asking you to trust me. I know trust is earned, not given. And I know I destroyed whatever trust we had. I'm just asking you to see I'm doing the work. Every day. AA meetings, therapy, working, paying my own bills, building a life that doesn't depend on you or anyone else." He paused. "And I'm asking you to know if you never want to see me again, I'll understand. Your peace is more important than my guilt." The room was silent except for the soft sound of crying both of us now. I looked at my son, really looked at him. This wasn't the arrogant man who'd expected breakfast after hitting me. This wasn't the drunk who'd smashed my grandmother's vase. This was someone new, someone I didn't quite know yet. "I forgive you," I said. His head snapped up, shock on his face. But I continued firmly, "Forgiving you doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean going back to how things were. That version of us, of you and me, died that night in my kitchen." I leaned forward. "If we're going to have any kind of relationship moving forward, it has to be a new one, built on honesty, on boundaries, on respect. You have your life, I have mine. We don't live together. We don't depend on each other. We're not enmeshed." He nodded eagerly. "I don't want to go back either, Mom. That version of us was toxic. I was toxic." "So what now?" I asked. Dr. Chen spoke up. "Now you both decide what a new relationship looks like, if you want one at all." 1 year after that terrible Tuesday night, I sat on my front porch watching the sunset. The house behind me was quiet, safe, mine. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. "Meeting at the coffee shop tomorrow, 10 a.m. We'd been doing this for 3 months now. Meeting twice a month at the Java House on Bay Street. Public place. 1-hour visits. Coffee and conversation. We talked about safe things. His job, he'd been promoted to department supervisor. My volunteer work at the shelter. Books we were reading. The weather. We didn't talk about that night. Didn't need to. It lived between us like a scar, acknowledged but not dwelled upon." I texted back, "I'll be there." Ethan was 15 months sober now, had his own apartment, was dating a woman from his AA group who understood recovery. He'd started going back to church. We weren't close. Probably never would be again. The easy intimacy of mother and son was gone, replaced by something more cautious, more careful. But it was real, and it was honest, and it was safe. My phone rang. Diana. "Michelle, are you coming to choir practice Thursday? Wouldn't miss it." "Good. And don't forget book club next Tuesday. We're reading that memoir you recommended." "I'll bring cookies." After we hung up, I rocked slowly in my chair, the same chair I'd sat in that long ago night when everything changed. I thought about the woman I used to be, the one who'd shrunk herself to fit other people's needs, who'd silenced herself to keep peace, who'd loved without boundaries until it nearly killed her. That woman was gone. In her place was someone stronger, wiser, someone who'd learned that you could love someone and still protect yourself from them. That being a good mother didn't mean being a martyr. That saying no was sometimes the most loving thing you could do. I'd learned that I was worth protecting, worth fighting for, worth choosing. And I'd learned that sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is draw a line in the sand and say, "I love you, but I love myself more." The sun sank lower, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. The jasmine perfumed the air. A mockingbird sang its evening song. My phone buzzed again. This time a message from a number I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Parker, this is Ashley. You don't know me, but I was at the domestic violence shelter today. I heard you speaking to someone about boundaries and safety and choosing yourself. I just wanted to say thank you. I'm leaving tonight. You gave me the courage." I stared at the message, tears blurring my vision. This was why I'd survived. Not just for myself, but to be able to tell others, you can survive too. You can choose life. You can be free. I typed back, "You're braver than you know. Be safe. Be strong. You deserve better." The sky darkened to purple, then indigo. Stars began to appear. I stood up, stretching my back, still a bit sore, sometimes a permanent reminder. Walked inside my house, my sanctuary. Locked the door behind me, armed the security system, made myself a cup of tea. And as I sat in my kitchen, the kitchen where I'd made the hardest decision of my life, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Deep, bone-level peace. I was 65 years old. I'd lost my husband, lost the son I thought I had, lost years of my life to fear and silence. But I'd found myself again, and that was worth everything. I raised my teacup to the empty kitchen, to Thomas, wherever he was, to the woman I used to be, to the woman I'd become. "Here's to second chances," I whispered, and to finally choosing me. The tea was sweet and warm, and I was home.